I'd like to open the Planning Commission meeting of October 13th. Is there any public comment that's not related to things on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, let's have a roll call to order.
Commissioner Pittenger?
Here.
Commissioner
Marino.
Marino, sorry.
Yes, yes, yeah, it's hard to hear you. Jeff's here.
Commissioner Byrd?
Here.
Chairman Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Commissioner Aguirre?
Okay, well, I guess we're only missing one. So, okay, at this time, I would like to thank the new members, Josh Stevens and Terry Pittenger, for joining this effort. We're glad to have you on the Planning Commission and look forward to working with you. I think you'll find it exciting and interesting. So, I hope. Okay, next on the agenda, we need to elect a vice chairman. Is there a nomination for vice chairman? Let's see.
I'll nominate Amy Aguirre.
Okay,
Second motion.
so that, again, it was,
Jim Berg nominating, Jeff seconding.
okay. We get that? Okay. Okay, so I guess she's not here, but that's our...
She is right now. I think she popped in.
Oh, okay.
I did. Thank you, guys. I'm happy to.
Okay, you've just been elected vice chairman. Is there any problem with that? Will you accept that?
Absolutely, and no conflict of interest that I know of.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll have the vote now.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, all right. We need to vote. Everybody, or any, the motion is to elect Ms. Aguirre for the vice chair. Roll call.
Commissioner Pittenger?
Yes.
Commissioner Marino?
Yes.
Commissioner Byrd?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Chairman Miller?
Yes.
By a unanimous vote, Amy Aguirre has been elected vice chairman.
Very good, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the adoption of some minutes, and we've got some minutes going way back, but let's start with the first ones, adoption of September 8th, 2020, this last month. Do we have a motion to accept those? Has everyone read them and agreed with it?
I move we accept as written.
Second motion.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, anybody opposed? Okay,
The record will show that the two new planning commissioners abstained from all three of the votes on the minutes.
yes. Okay, adoption of August 13th, 2019.
I move to accept them.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, motion passed. Lastly, the adoption of September 10th, 2019.
Move we
I'll move
accept
to
as written.
Second the motion.
Okay, in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? I need to abstain, I was not here that day. So, okay, that out of the way, let's get to our public hearings. First item A, architectural design review, signage at Face Rock Creamery, wall-mounted signs. Let's see, is there any conflict of interest with commissioners? If not, Debbie, can you fill us in?
I'll read the public hearing disclosure statement. The review criteria for the Waterfront Heritage District is found at Coos Bay Municipal Code, Chapter 17.240, and it was included in the staff report and notice. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria and other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which a person believes is applicable to the decision. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient detail to afford the decision makers and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal on that issue. We have a request for wall-mounted signage at 1250 North Bayshore Drive for Face Rock Creamery. The design standards for signage in the district regulate signage, and signage should emulate signage that existed during the designated historic period and must be consistent with the character of the storefront, the building on which it's situated, and the area as a whole. Review for consistency includes, but is not limited to, evaluation of size, shape, position, material, illumination in relationship to the facade and the abutting adjacent structures. The applicants are proposing one internal lit halo sign on the west elevation, and they're proposing two non-illuminated wall-mounted signs over the entrances with lighting fixtures that are attached to the canopy and face up towards the wall, as is described in the staff report. Staff found that their proposed signage does meet the intent of the ordinance. They would like signage on option A, the east elevation, to include a sign that it's not over an entrance. If you would go to slide 2, on the left, you will see option A, that the applicant is proposing a sign on the bottom left-hand corner in that black section of building, a wall-mounted sign that isn't specifically addressed in our ordinance. And then option B, which is the DAT's recommendation to not have a sign there because it's not over an entrance. The applicant would like consideration of option A, believing that it is more symmetrical, that these workspaces or these occupancies were intended to be two different buildings. So having a sign on that portion lets people know that yes, indeed, it is part of the same business because the facades are so different in appearance. And so what we are asking the Planning Commission to do is to review it and recommend approval of either option A or option B.
Okay, Trina, do you have anything to say?
You don't have
Oh,
to.
please step to the podium and let's give your name and address.
Trina from Art Signs, and we obviously like option A better. It just flows with the building much nicer than option B, where it's just left a blank spot. You know, we're here to comply with the codes, so we would love option A, but we'll take what we're given. So I think it looks a lot nicer. I think option A looks a lot nicer than option B. That's just my thought, though.
Okay. Very well. Any opposition to either option A or B? If not, let's close the hearing and make a decision.
Are you ready for our comments?
We are, Jim.
Well, to me, I think that, I guess I always wonder why we have these little things to deal with. I mean, these people are putting in huge amounts of money, building the nicest new stuff we've got here in Coos Bay. They have thoughtfully figured out where a sign would look the best. It doesn't quite fit the nomenclature of our something or other, but in any event, I think option A is fine. And I think these people are doing an excellent job and need kind of reinforcement rather than anything else.
Very well. I agree.
I'm for option A then.
Okay, any other comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we,
Well,
that we accept option A for the,
Do we have a second?
Second it?
All right. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Oh, well,
Aye.
we gotta do a roll call, I'm sorry.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna do it official.
Okay.
Commissioner Pittenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Marino,
Aye.
Commissioner Berg,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Here, yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre,
Aye.
Chairman Miller.
Aye.
By a unanimous vote, it has been agreed upon for option A.
There is a 15-day appeal period from the date the decision's put in writing, which should be tomorrow, but I will send out that as soon as it's available. Thank you.
Okay, could we jump to item B, since it's similar? Do we have to do a report, staff report?
I will read the hearing disclosure statement. The review criteria for the Waterfront Heritage District is found in Coos Bay Municipal Code, Chapter 17.240, and was included in the staff reported notice. The testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria and other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which a person believes is applicable to the decision. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient detail to afford the decision makers and party an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal on that issue. We have another sign application request in the Waterfront Heritage District. This one is for 1230 North Bay Shore for Spectrum. Again, the goals and standards for signage in that district are intended to emulate the signs that existed during the designated period and be consistent with the character and storefront, the building on which it's situated, and the area as a whole. Review for consistency includes, but is not limited to, evaluation of site, shape, position, material, illumination, and relationship to the facade and the abutting adjacent structures. The applicant is proposing a wall-mounted sign on the east, west, and south elevation, and that on the west and south elevation, there will be gooseneck lighting to provide illumination. Staff reviewed it and found that it is consistent with the goals and standards of the district and recommend that the Planning Commission approve as submitted.
Okay, Trina, anything to add to that? Okay, seems to be straightforward.
Just a question. Since this meets all of the criteria and standards, why is the Planning Commission hearing the application instead of staff approving it?
Any alterations in the waterfront and the Empire Design Review areas requires a Planning Commission review. whether it's for a new
So-
building, an addition, or signage.
So this is what you term an alteration from the original application?
When they submitted their construction plan, signage was not submitted at the time because the building hadn't even been leased, I don't think, at the time. So once the
Right.
tenant was chosen, then the tenant had to apply for their sign permit. And that'll be the case with all signage throughout the whole development unless the applicant or owner decides to set some minimum standards that the planning commission could approve for future signage.
This is Carolyn. If the applicant did come up with some standards, then staff could use those to take action on the signage rather than you having to see every one of them. So
Well,
until and unless that
I would-
happens, you're going to have to look at these sign applications.
Well, this, Jim, I would hope that they would be encouraged to do that, not because our precious time is so valuable that we can't do it, but I think it sort of
Very time consuming.
makes sense for everybody to be able to not drag it out like this. You know, people go into business and need a sign, and so if they're meeting standards that that we've agreed to as a whole, then we shouldn't have to go through this exercise, because someday there might not be people on this commission that are smart enough to figure that out.
It sounds like, Commissioner Berg, you're recommending that the applicants take that back to their client and let them know that that would be a good idea.
No. I'm probably, I want us to get this one sorted out, but I'm hoping that
Of course.
they do the next one, is what I'm trying to say, because
Of course.
I think
that's-
that, the
Yeah.
direction we're trying to head, to further empower, you folks down there, and to, minimize this kind of stuff that we talk about, because sometimes we just get ourselves kind of wound up in it.
Certainly. I think we can connect with the applicant and talk with them about it again and see if maybe they'd like to do that. And we can connect with
In the
you and Bill.
future, I don't want to
Yeah,
slow this
after
one up.
tonight. After tonight, yeah.
So I would make a motion to approve the signage based on the applicant's submittal here.
Okay, do we
With
have
the
a second?
condition as proposed.
As proposed.
As proposed.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second. Let's do a roll call.
Commissioner Bittinger?
Yes.
Commissioner Marrow?
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Aguirre?
Aye.
Chairman Miller?
Aye.
By unanimous vote, it has been approved.
And there, again, is a 15-day appeal period from the date the decision's put in writing, which should be tomorrow. Thank you, Trina.
Okay, next item on the agenda is item C, conditional use application, telecommunications. Verizon, can you hear me now?
You can. Hi.
I will read the hearing disclosure statement. The review criteria for a conditional use and site plan review are found at Coos Bay Municipal Code, Chapter 17.347 and Chapter 17.365, of which was included in the staff reported notice. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which a person believes is applicable to the decision. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient detail to afford the decision makers and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal on that issue. The applicant, the Port of Coos Bay, is requesting approval of a conditional use permit and site plan review application to place a 150-foot monopole with 6 antennas within a 40 by 40 fence compound, which will have a concrete pad, communication cabinets, backup generator, and the area will be landscaped. The conditional use criteria, there are 4 criterion that have to be supported. One of which is the proposed use complies with the applicable requirements of the zone except as otherwise approved by variance or other means consistent with the title. The size, shape, dimension, location, topography, and access characteristics of the site are suitable to accommodate the proposed use and necessary mitigation for potential adverse impacts, considering size, shape, location, topography, and natural features. All required public facilities have adequate capacity and design to serve the proposed use. Any impacts related to the building massing, parking, access, traffic, noise, vibration, exhaust, emissions, light, glare, erosion, odor, dust, heat, fire hazard, visibility, and safety are no greater than any other use permitted in the zone or can be mitigated by imposing reasonable conditions of approval which specifically address the potential impacts and are intended to reduce the impacts to levels consistent with other permitted uses in the zone. The applicant submitted their original application earlier in the year, but they had a wetland report done that showed that where an existing tower is located, there are wetlands there, and so they went back and picked another site, which are, okay, our PowerPoint isn't working, but they chose a site that actually is not in a wetland area. If you'll refer to your report, there's a very small area in which there are no wetlands on that property, and that is where the applicant is proposing to locate the tower. It is approximately 1,500 feet from the nearest residence, and there is currently a access road that is used not only for the property, but for the existing, I think it's a radio tower or something that's already located on there. It's gravelled and it's gated. The applicant indicates that there will probably be technicians on site 2 times per month just to check out the equipment, make sure everything's running appropriately. Of course, if they have change out of equipment, like new antennas or changing out antennas, that might occasionally increase a little bit, but it's very little traffic. They are proposing to landscape around it, which is a requirement of the site plan review portion, as well as part of the conditional use. So staff found that they do comply with the approval criterion for a conditional use. There's also the site plan portion of it, and since our PowerPoint isn't working, I will read those criteria, approval criterion. The proposed use is permitted within the district in which it's located. The proposal meets the lot and building height, size, setback, and dimensional requirements of the district. The proposal meets screening, buffering, landscaping, as outlined in the supplementary design standards. The minimum parking and loading spaces are met. Improvement requirements are provided in accordance with the applicable sections of the development code. All conditions of any applicable provisions, like conditional use, have been made. The development, subject to site plan review, has provided underground, public, and private utilities. Public water, sewer, and storm is in compliance, and it regulates phasing of the project. A lot of these criterion don't apply to this. The proposed use, of course, is listed as a conditionally permitted use in the zone, but otherwise it meets all the criterion outlined for a telecommunication facility. There are no like water or sewer or anything proposed for it. And there's no phasing. Staff found that the site plan review approval criterion have been adequately addressed. And so staff is recommending approval of the conditional use and the site plan review for construction of the telecommunication facility as proposed, but subject to the conditions of approval listed on the last page, which are, the development requires a public works site development permit, and that's where they will address drainage, any grading, any of that kind of stuff will be addressed in that. There are 3 elements that are a priority in those reviews, and it's to ensure that temporary erosion and sediment control measures are in place prior and during construction. Preventative erosion and sediment control measures are required to be installed on all disturbed area prior to final. And it needs to have vegetation at 75% stability and coverage for the work site. Drainage from the site can't adversely affect adjacent neighbors and downstream systems, and the historic drainage patterns must be maintained. Condition number 2 is that it is the responsibility of the applicant to ensure all applicable resource agency permits and approvals are obtained, and that includes DEQ, our Army Corps of Engineer, Division of State Lands, State Historic Preservation, and any local tribes that might have input on what their proposal is. The completed project must be verified to comply with the land use approval through a final inspection, which is conducted by the City of Coos Bay at the completion of development.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sure we've all had cell phones, but there's no conflict of interest. All right. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the telecommunication tower? Does anyone oppose it? Okay. Let's close the hearing and deliberate. So any thoughts for the commissioners?
So this is like a
I have a
cell
question.
tower?
Well, it's like a cell tower, but I don't.
Is it
It
specific?
is a cell phone tower, yes. It's a
Okay.
monopole.
Okay. Can I ask a question about the appearance of the pole? Because I don't see in the stuff that I have what it looks like. Is it stainless steel? Is it brown, green? Is it something we typically see on the freeway? What's it look like?
Sure. If I can
It is-
respond.
Gosh, that's really small. It is a monopole. Let me look at the applicant's submittal for a description of the pole.
So is it just a single pole, which we typically see, with an array of antennas fronting north, south, east, west, whatever?
It is
Direct-
not a tower, it is a monopole. It's just the finished material I'm not exactly sure of, whether it is a color or if it's just silver.
I have a question. This area over there is presently zoned residential, I believe. Zoned that way, presumably to get the highest and best use and best return to the citizens who own the Port Authority. How does this pole affect the development of this property for residential use?
I guess that would depend on how close residential uses in the future might be proposed. But I'm sure the applicant took that into consideration before they applied. I mean,
Well, I'm sure they did.
So It's, you say 1,500 feet from the nearest house, correct?
Yes, approximately.
Well, that's, I recall that as part of the thing, but when you say a monopole is, and that could be simply like a telephone pole that goes up and thins out towards the top. Is that the description of this?
It looks like it's
Tower.
a metal pole with the wires that go through it.
I'm not sure who that is.
This is Christine Bradford from ACOM for Verizon Wireless. Is it appropriate for me to comment at this time?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if you could hear me earlier. Yes, this is a galvanized steel monopole that you would typically see when you're driving down the freeway. It isn't of glaring material. It's kind of an off gray. It can be painted to adhere to any requirement that would be needed. Sometimes some jurisdictions require brown. Sometimes you've seen a brown or green color. The gray seems to be most well blended with the environment. But this is a single pole. And yes, there's a large hybrid cable that runs from the antennas at the top of the monopole down to the bottom, and they do run through the center. That is correct.
Okay, so we actually have an example of towers in Coos Bay, one of which is out on Ocean Boulevard by a self-storage project that is galvanized. The Planning
Okay.
Commission approved that 10 to 15 years ago.
Sure.
And after it was put up, I was a bit put off by its appearance. Subsequent to the installation of that tower, there has been several additional towers at the Boys and Girls Club, some of which, one of which, or maybe both, are colored green. So my personal preference is to recommend to the applicant that it be colored at least green or brown, and preferably green.
Okay. I can definitely take notation of that, and we'd be happy to provide that.
Even though Jeff and I are both Oregon grads, we don't really want that bright Oregon green. We're talking kind of a green that will blend into the background.
Sure. I assume we could be provided with a specific color requirement that we would be able to meet with having painted.
It would just seem less obtrusive to do that, I think.
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay.
Anyone else? I had a couple of things. One, I didn't see anything in the pre-application conference submittal that was that we were given in the packet. Do they realize that this sets just less than 100 yards away from a huge detonation site on the 4th of July? The fire chief signed off on this, but nevertheless, that's where all the fireworks are set off, is basically underneath this thing. The trenches are dug, and they don't always go where they're supposed to. So, I mean, that would be a bit of a concern. Was that brought up?
That was not brought up in the pre-application meeting, and there was no comment in regards to the firework display. We could probably put some, what I'm assuming we could possibly do to mitigate concern there is discuss safety precautions to put in place during this event that happens annually. I assume that the other tower that is on the property currently on the port's parcel also undergoes some sort of mitigation as well during this event, which I can follow up with the port on how they handle that, considering there is use of another tower there and how they handle that specifically on an annual basis.
Okay, well, I guess it's your tower. I just don't want to see something go wrong. The
Sure.
second thing, is it lighted? Is there a light on top of it?
There is not a light required by the FAA on this tower. It does not exceed the requirement by the FAA for lighting.
That's good.
I read
Yes.
the two
That's
pages that
good.
the FAA signed
That's a
off
great
on,
question.
And that's fine, but we do have a
Yeah.
float plane that occasionally comes into this harbor, and that
Mm-hmm.
float plane, that projection is 150 foot is well in his view of coming in and landing to service a boardwalk. I would suggest that there be some sort of a red light on top of that.
I would disagree with that. If the pilot is flying in inclement weather or in bad conditions, that's a problem. He shouldn't be flying at all and landing in our bay at that point. But a red light is visible from hundreds of homes up on the hillside in East Side, plus Telegraph Hill and Bunker Hill. So,
At my office.
and Jim Burke's office. I don't recommend that.
I think this tower would probably show up on the updated sectional charts, and I'm sure that float plane's flying VFR, visually only. He's not flying on instruments coming into the bay. So he I would guess, would have ample warning that it's
Okay.
there.
Well, I will retract that then. Lastly, and this is a very small issue, but it's very hard to tell where the footprint of this tower is going to be, because there's nothing on the information that we've got that really pins it down. But at any rate, it's kind of the apex of north-south highways. If that interchange was to ever happen, if you line up D Street and East Side with Central Avenue, and you line up 101 as it comes through, that's in the center of it going east. So that's a small issue, and it may never go there, but when the Isthmus Slough Bridge fails, it was built in 1920, and it will fail one of these days, I really think that the highway is going to connect those roads and not be replaced. So that's just another small issue that's down the road, and probably not something we need to worry about today, but it is a thought.
Well, of course, if we're going to straighten up Central Avenue, we're going to have to get rid of the city hall, so.
Well, okay, is there any other deliberation? You ready to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the findings and facts as stated, together with the staff's recommendations, with the additional condition that the applicant provide a green color for the monopole.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second.
All right, Commissioner Pittenger,
Yes.
Commissioner Marino,
Aye.
Commissioner Burr,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Commissioner Aguirre,
Aye.
Chairman Miller,
Nay.
all right, by a vote of 6-1, the motion has been approved.
We have 15 days, Debbie.
There is a 15-day appeal period from the date the decision is put in writing, which should be tomorrow.
All right, last item on the list is item D, conditional use and a variance and site plan review for the hollering place?
I'll read the hearing
Chairman.
disclosure statement.
Chairman Miller, excuse me, Chairman Miller,
Yes,
are you there?
yes, I am.
This is Jim Berg. I'm going to need, I sit on the board of directors for the Blue Earth Corporation, which is the Confederated Tribes for-profit entity that, you know, works on things like this. I also am on the board of directors of the Boat Building Center, which is adjacent to this. And furthermore, I'm the sort of the realtor representing Doug Devine, the owner of the Hollering Place property and 4 lots across this Newmark from the Hollering Place. So even though I'm sorry to have to do this after reading this entire thing all the way through, I'm going to have to recuse myself from this discussion based on, just too much conflict.
Very good, Jim. Thanks for your honesty. Very good. You will be excused.
Yeah, I'm an honest guy, Jeff, you know.
I hate to do this, but I also, due to my work with the tribes, I'm going to need to recuse myself from this discussion and decision here.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, we still have a quorum, so let's continue. Let's see.
Alrighty, the review criteria for a conditional use, site plan review, and variance is found at Coos Bay Municipal Code, Chapter 17.347, 17.365, and 17.372. The Confederated Tribes have applied for a land use approval for a 4,300 square foot cultural building on the upper bluff of Holleran Place. The building is phase 1 of the development for the entire Holleran Place property and will include visitors information services, retail sales, offices, office reservations, for the lower bench area, uses and cultural exhibits, which are listed as suggested uses in the Holleran Place Master Plan. The cultural building's narrow footprint design and glass along the westerly elevation enhances views from Empire and the Cultural Center building. The building will be accessed from an adjacent 14-space parking lot with walkways and landscape features, furniture, interpretive signs, exterior lighting of features, and the play area near the south entrance. Some updates, corrections, and clarifications since the staff report was sent out. Regarding traffic impacts, while the cultural resource development won't create transportation impacts as conditioned, future development on the lower bluff may very well require some further traffic studies. And so the applicant had submitted that with this proposal. So we just want you to know that while it's a traffic impact analysis for this portion of the development is not required, it likely will be for the next phase of development. Since the submittal, the applicant has added PV panels to the south-facing roofs of the proposed structure, and we're going to consider that as part of the development. And when they can submit their construction plans, they will have to submit it for that as well at that time. Correction to the staff report, off-street parking calculations found in finding D2, which is referenced on page 15 and I think 17. In the report, staff noted that the off-street parking demand for this use was 1 space per 350 square feet of building, but it's actually 1 per 400. And so the off-street parking requirement for the 4,300 square foot building is 11 spaces, and the applicant is providing 14, so they are in compliance. A correction is recommended for condition of approval A5. It indicates that they would have to, the applicant would have to get permission from the Urban Renewal Agency regarding any changes, refurbishing or relocation of existing interpretive signs. But there was other agencies involved in funding those interpretive signs. So we're recommending that the condition of approval be revised to read that any change, refurbishing, relocation of existing interpretive signs must be approved by the agency from which funds were used. And on condition A6, which is on page 17, there is a condition that notes that upon approval, any proposed changes to the development, if they're considered to be minor, can be made by the department head. And it would be, let's see, so the mechanism or process to move or change the parking or any other minor changes that can be addressed at a staff level without returning to the planning commission for an action. So any changes that don't change the overall intent of the approval. And then the last change, correction, or clarification is the fact that we are doing a conditional use in lieu of a planned unit development. The upper bluff and the lower bench were intended to be developed at the same time, and so a planned unit development was a requirement of the master plan and ordinance. But the applicant requested that they be allowed to develop the upper site first to get the project going. There's a lot less requirements, restrictions, and development costs for the upper bluff. And so our director used his discretion to authorize a similar process, which is the conditional use and site plan review that offers the same level of review as a PUD, but allows them to be reviewed separately. So part one of the application is the conditional use. And if you would like, I can read the 4 approval criterion for the conditional use.
Yes, please do, Debbie.
Okay. The proposed use complies with the applicable requirements of the zone, except as otherwise approved by a variance or other means consistent with this title. The site size, dimension, location, topography, and access characteristics are suitable to accommodate the proposed use and necessary mitigation of potential adverse impacts considering the size, shape, location, topography, and natural features. All required public facilities, including water, sanitary, sewer, drainage, and roads, have adequate capacity and design to serve the proposed use either as they exist or as may be modified by conditions of approval. And any impacts related to building massing, parking, access, traffic, noise, vibration, exhaust, and emissions, light, glare, erosion, odor, dust, heat, fire hazard, visibility, and safety are no greater than any other use permitted in the zone or can be mitigated by imposing reasonable conditions of approval which specifically address the potential impacts and are intended to reduce the impact to levels consistent with other uses permitted in the zone. Part 2 of the application is a variance. And the approval criteria for a variance is a minimum variance necessary to make reasonable use of the property. The variance will not result in violations of any other code standard, and the variance will meet the purposes of the regulation being modified. The need for the variance was not created by the applicant and/or owner requesting the variance. And if more than one variance is requested, the cumulative effect of the variances result in a project that is consistent with the overall purpose of the zone. And finally, part 3 is the site plan review. And the review criterion include The proposed use is permitted within the district in which it's located. The proposal meets the lot, yard, building height, and other dimensional requirements of the district within which it's located. The proposal meets the screening, buffering, and landscaping strip requirements as set forth in Chapter 17.335. Minimum off-street parking and loading requirements are met. Improvement requirements are provided in accordance with the applicable sections of the Development Code. All conditions of any applicable previous approvals, including conditional uses, have been met. The development, subject to the site plan review, has provided underground public and private utility lines, including but not limited to those for electricity and communication. Public water, sewer, and storm lines have been installed in conformance with the standards of the city code. Public water, sewer, and storm lines within and along the frontage of the development have been extended to the extreme property line of that development unless it's been demonstrated to the Public Works Department that such extensions are impractical or infeasible or inappropriate. The proposed phasing plans does not exceed 6 years, and all required public infrastructure is installed in the first phase of the development. The conclusion staff came to on all of those approval criterion is that the proposed cultural center project design and use as conditioned will comply with the applicable Coos Bay Municipal Code requirements of the Holler and Place Land Use District. The site's size, dimension, location, which is at the corner of Newmark and Empire Boulevard, gently sloped topography and vehicular access to Empire Boulevard are suitable to accommodate the proposed cultural center use. With the project conditions, there is no evidence of potential impact due to the site's size, shape, location, topography, natural features, or the proposed building, massing, parking, noise, vibration, exhaust, emissions, light, glare, erosion, odor, dust, heat, fire, hazard, visibility, and safety. And as conditioned, the required public facilities have adequate capacity and design to serve the cultural center use. Approval of the application can be supported subject to the conditions specified in Section 5 of the staff report that the Planning Commission was given. And staff is recommending that based on the applicant's submittal and other information as addressed in the October 13th Planning Commission staff report for project 187-19-000084-PLNG, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the project with a similar motion to the following. I move to approve the conditional use variance site plan review for this land use action consistent with the findings and subject to the corrections provided by staff and the revised conditions of the April 13th staff report. And if you have any questions regarding the traffic impact analysis, we do have Kim Parducci on the line available to answer any questions you might have about that portion.
Okay, so I guess we approach this first with the conditional use. And we'll make, let's see, we'll do a motion for conditional use, one for variance and one for site plan, or is variance and site plan together?
We have written it that, we have written a conclusion that can cover all the approval criteria. We've also written a possible motion that can incorporate all three parts in one motion, if you agree with all three parts.
Okay, well, that's what we've got lined out. I guess the next thing is there someone here to speak in favor of this proposal? Please state your name and your address at the podium. Yes, Hillary, thanks.
Is it okay if I take my mask off to speak?
It's okay with me.
No objections?
Yeah, no objections.
Thank you. My name is Hilary Baker. I'm from Crow-Clay Associates Architects, and this application was prepared in collaboration with Crystal Shoji of Shoji Planning. The applicant is the Confederated Tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua and Sayusa Indians, and they're represented here tonight by Stephanie Watkins, acting CEO. We may have Jeff Stump also on the on video. I didn't see him there, but we do also have as our consultants, we have Kelly Sandow, who is our traffic impact analysis engineer. We also have Marlon Gooch now, who is our acting civil engineer, as sadly Mark Hampton passed away. We also have the tribal attorney, Rick Eichstad. So, moving on from there after the introductions, this project, if I have the next slide, please. The proposal is to add a new building and develop the wayside lot, which is at the corner of Empire and Newmark. The property is owned by the tribe. The building will be a cultural building, and the wayside will develop with more parking and with additional landscaping. It's part of a larger project, as Debbie mentioned, which is to develop the lower lots, and this is phase 1. The next slide, please. Thank you.
We need a new cell tower.
The site is very important culturally to the tribe. It was the site of an original village, and it's the tribe's intention to develop both this site and also the lower lots to be evocative of tribal culture. And tribal culture is not only art, it's also events, collaboration with partners, and smells, and we'll see that in a later slide when we get to it.
It's frozen.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
If you'd like to go to Appendix D, I think we could move on. You will see that we've positioned the building in compliance with the master plan, which was prepared in 2007. It's a slim, narrow building on the corner of Newmark and Empire. We have developed pathways around the site and have taken more opportunities for viewing stations along those pathways, because that was something that was fundamental to the community coalition of Empire. That's the reason why they collaborated with the city to develop the wayside lot, was to enjoy these views. We're also on the southwest corner introduced a playground. It's important. Education of children is very important to the tribe, and this playground would have natural obstacles and features that are important to tribal culture. It's important to note that whilst the wayside lot is flat, the lot to the north, which is the lot where we're building, is not flat, and it slopes about 5 feet from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. And it is our intention to we're going to lower the building below the level of the road by about 30 inches, and then we will head off towards the bluff, and we go right to the edge of the bluff. So that's why you will see when we get to the elevations that there is a significant change in level, and we've had to introduce some retaining walls. The site will be planted with native plants and plants that are significant to the tribe's culture. We plan to protect the bank with more erosion control plants, and we will be enhancing the swale system on the existing wayside. Storm drainage will go to an existing storm drain that runs north-south across the site and enters into Newmark. The actual building opens to the south. It's approached from the south, and we have a lobby entrance, and then it separates out into there's a exhibit or community space on each side, and then we have a central reception and restrooms, and the restrooms will be available to the public, which is something that probably will If you look at the elevation sheet on the drawing one, shows to the right, shows a 30-inch drop from Empire down to the pathway that runs along the south side of the building, and then shows that very steep bank drop off. It also shows that on 2, which is the north elevation, and we have a section which is drawing number 5, which shows that we've concealed all mechanical equipment in a roof line. Thank you. If I just flip back, this slide shows the extent of the development, and here is the concept drawing for the landscape plan, which shows.
I'm trying for you.
Okay, that showed the features, the play features, and showed interpretive signage at the height of children. So returning back to, flip back once again. The reason for this slide is it shows the whole hovering place that
You want to go to the next one?
to the next one.
Okay, that one.
The next one, please.
Let's see.
That's awesome. Sorry, the one before that.
Here, okay,
There, awesome.
open space. Thank you.
This shows the tribal working with the national, has been awarded grant by the National Endowment Allowance to develop an arts and culture master plan for the entire Hollywood Place development. And this plan is reflective of where our public art features might be located, and also reflects the elements that are important to tribal culture, which is the canoes, silk plants, drums, baskets, basket weaving, beading, sound lake. So there are certain styles of themes which would persist and be complemented in the cultural building site. Have the next slide. Or I will just move back to the elevations. The building is a building that's intended to have exhibits within it. It responds to the 2007 master plan by having extensive windows on the east side, which is faced Empire, so that people can see into the building and see activity. That's important for a pedestrian connection. On the west side, we have similar extensive windows which look out over onto the water and take advantage of the views. Next slide, please. The building materials are very subdued. Again, we use wood siding, which is vertical wood siding, which will be stained a very subtle blue color, and blue clay is very important to the creation of life story for the tribe. The window frames will be silver, the roof will be silver, and there will be accents with a muted blue-green, which is similar to the sort of general haze you see in the background over the water, and you see the landscape beyond the mountain and the fir trees. Next slide, please.
It's still frozen.
Are there any questions?
Guess not.
Just a comment here. Unfortunately, the video of the presentation has not been available to a couple of planning commissioners, one in particular, me. But based on the plans that I see here, I'm, I'm impressed. It's a absolutely stunning design for that corner. Shape, massing, textures, and given the fact that it used to be a very ugly bar scene years ago, this actually will probably rival the Coos History Museum as architecturally, which I think Crow Clay did as well. It's going to be a centerpiece of the Hollering Place, and it's also going to be a focal point for tourists at that corner. And given the fact that, if I read the site plan correct, that the tribe is interested in cleaning up the city-owned space to the south, tying this all in, it's going to be a remarkable investment in the community, especially looking out over the bay there.
Jeff, this is Hillary. Thank you. The tribe do own the Wayside site to the south, and their intention is to replant it, re-landscape it, and add that playground. So it will be improved, and probably, as it was originally intended to be more of a meeting place and more attractive.
Yes, it looks like it's going to be a big improvement, although it's not terrible at this point. You're tying this all together, and I guarantee you that parking lot's going to be full during the summer in particular.
Very good. Hillary, is that it?
Thank you, that's it.
Okay. All right. Who's next up? Good job. We'll get to you, Crystal.
I'm Christine Moffett. I am a resident of the Empire Village area, and I live at 700 Denise Place. I stand here today in awe of this development and in great support, and it's quite fitting that it comes the day after Indigenous Peoples' Day, where we're beginning to understand that we're not all immigrants in this land that we occupy. Anyway, I have been able to work with members of the tribe and learn about their culture, and I just can't embrace this any stronger. And I'm also speaking for other residents of the Empire area that are so thrilled to have this development come and have it done so carefully. And we encourage you to support in any way and to let the residents know the latest details of this, because this is pretty exciting. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Crystal, you have anything to say?
No, thank you. It's just been great to work on this and looking for the tribes on a lot of different things, and I'm really excited.
Great. Well, I'm sure there's no one here. Okay, would you like to speak?
Please, no, I just, Hillary did a fabulous job.
Okay. All right. Well, I see no one in opposition, and there shouldn't be any. This is a very good project. I guess from here we can close the hearing and see if there's any discussion with commissioners. So what do we think? Said everybody had time to review the plans?
I think it's beautiful.
Okay.
Josh, I gotta stay out of this one.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
I would love to tell you what I think, but.
Okay. All right. I guess my interest would have been in the landscape, and it seemed to be very straightforward, and I think it's a good plan. I think it's a good choice of plant materials. So I certainly have no problems with it, and I would like to see something more happen in Empire. So I guess with that said, can we entertain a motion?
Can we entertain it as Debbie read it?
Well, yes. and
To
there's
be
going-
moved, to move it as she read that she would like the motion to be?
Yes.
Do you want
Debbie,
me to
did we
read?
get the details with that? We had to include, is it A5 and A6?
Oh, so if you were to make a motion,
Okay.
I move, whatever you say.
Okay.
to approve the conditional use application with the variance and site plan review for application number 187-19-000084-PLNG, consistent with the findings and subject to the corrections provided by staff and the revised conditions of approval of the October 13th, 2020 staff report.
I so move.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Bill's the motion, Jeff's the second. I guess we need a roll call.
All right. Commissioner Pittenger,
Yes.
Commissioner Marinello,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes?
Commissioner Aguirre,
Aye.
Chairman Miller,
Aye.
by a unanimous vote, it is in favor.
Again, there is a 15-day appeal period from the date the decision's put in writing, which likely will be tomorrow.
I'd just like to say, very big effort. That's a big set of plans. Very well done.
Absolutely. It's if it comes to fruition, the community will be very proud of the development at that corner and hopefully expanded to the lower elevation.
Okay, I guess go build it. All right, next on the agenda is public comments, CCI public comments. What's that all about?
Next month, we have a review of a subdivision up at the north end of Coos Bay. It'll be a 14-unit subdivision, and I believe, unless Carolyn has something, that likely will be the only thing on the agenda. Except some other old minutes I need to approve.
Commissioners, this is Carolyn, and we may have another item on the agenda that evening related to housing regulations, but I will know more in the coming weeks. I also wanted to report that the City Council just approved the housing needs assessment last week, and that will be used as a baseline for our future amendments to our comp plan and our zoning regulations to develop some new programs and policies to encourage housing in our city. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, we're coming up on holiday time next month. If you were all planning to be in the area, we would have a quorum in December. The meeting in December is scheduled for December 8th. So if you could let us know a little while in advance whether or not you're going to be available, that would be very helpful. Because if we don't have a quorum, we won't schedule a meeting. We'll go ahead and cancel it for the holiday. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then we got commissioner comments. Any comments?
Jeff here. Somewhere along the line, we've had these Teams meetings with video. It's not absolutely necessary for me to see all of you, although that would be great. But if we have these presentations with regard to PowerPoint presentations that we should be seeing, and we have seen in the past, I hope that the technical difficulties that we had tonight will get resolved.
So do we.
We
And-
have plexiglass partitions now, so it's a lot safer. I didn't feel unsafe last month.
How many planning commissioners are at the council meeting tonight? If I may ask.
There's 4 in attendance and 3 on Teams.
Okay, thank you.
And we will be working to try and ensure that the freezing of the PowerPoints don't happen again next month. So we've been pretty lucky so far, but tonight just wasn't one of those days.
All right, Bill, do you have anything? Jim, you must have something.
You know, I'm kind of disappointed that I don't, but no.
Okay. Josh, what do you think about your first night?
Yeah,
Got through it.
yeah, still here.
Terry, what about you?
Looks good, it's exciting.
Okay, well, I gotta say, you dropped into probably the biggest one that you could ever imagine with all the paperwork. It's not like this every month.
No.
It's not at all like this.
But I was surprised that you didn't ask them what type of flowers they were gonna grow outside the hall.
It's on their landscape plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think.
He wants to know what color the flowers are gonna be sometime, so.
Chairman Miller. Rex?
Yes.
Could I make a comment here to staff?
Certainly.
I spent roughly going on to Novus, which works fine. I spent about 30 to 45 minutes today, and I'm quite computer literate with lots of tools at my disposal, printing out the agenda, et cetera, all of the attachments. So from this point forward, will you please put me on the list of planning commissioners that gets a hard copy, at least printed out, and I can pick it up at City Hall, or delivered, or mailed to my office, because I'm not going to do that again. It's very, very time consuming with large projects like we experienced tonight. And I'm looking at a quite large application that Jim Berg has on his desk that was delivered directly, apparently, to his office.
Well, Jeff, I'm sorry, Jeff, but we all can't have that kind of service.
Well, actually, we did send with the request for verification of attendance, we did indicate that if you ever want a printed copy, just let us know, but we will add you to the list for printed copies.
Yeah. If normally speaking, this is an exceptional application process with these 3 or 4 ones that we had in front of us tonight. But normally speaking, it's not a big deal. But if I don't want to have to pick and choose, so just put me on the list, please.
Sure.
I would appreciate it.
You are on the list.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, any staff comments? All right, then we are adjourned.
Thank you.